You never really notice the moment you vanish. It doesn't come with sirens or slammed doors. It's quiet, like forgetting where you put your keys and later realizing you lost the entire house. It started on a Tuesday, over dinner with my husband's colleagues. The kind of dinner where the women wear beige, the men talk numbers, and I smile on cue like background music. "How did you two meet?" one of the men asked, swirling his scotch, looking more at my dress than at me. John grinned, that smug, polished smile he wore like a custom suit, and said, "She wouldn't stop texting me. Relentless little thing." I gave in out of mercy. They laughed. Loudly. "She chased me for months," he continued. "Now she follows me around like a puppy. Guess I trained her well." My fingers wrapped around the stem of my glass. I smiled. Just enough. The same way I always did, not too cold, not too warm. Perfectly palatable. That night I knew one thing with certainty. He would never humiliate me like that again. Later, on the patio, while I delivered their drinks with the precision of a five-star server, John made another comment. This time to his golf buddy Richard, loud enough for the staff to hear. "Look at her. Knows when to smile, when to speak, when to disappear. Took me years, but I got her housebroken." More laughter. I placed the tray down gently, ensuring every glass hit the coaster without a sound. Just like he liked it. Hollow grace. That was my specialty. Inside something shifted. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just a click. Like something locking into place inside my chest. By the time I was alone in the kitchen, loading their dishes into the washer, I wasn't thinking about his stories or their laughter. I was thinking about the version of myself that used to walk into boardrooms without asking anyone's permission. 7 years ago, that version of me had built a consulting firm from scratch. I'd closed deals over conference tables, wore heels that clicked like authority across polished floors. And now? I stood in a marble kitchen with hair curled to his preference and lipstick 3 shades lighter than I liked. Because bold doesn't suit you, babe. I dried my hands and stared at my reflection in the glass door. Blonde, curated. Every inch of me approved by him. But deep beneath the curated layers, something ancient stirred. Not rage. Not rebellion. Just memory. Of who I was. Before I became Mrs. John Whitman. The hallway was quiet as I climbed the stairs. Not rushed, not hesitant. Just steady. Like a woman going to fetch something she'd nearly forgotten existed. Our bedroom looked untouched. Not in the magazine-perfect way John preferred, but in the way that made it feel more like a showroom than a space where a real person lived. The bedding was perfectly tucked, the lighting low and neutral. His idea of calming. My idea of sterile. I stepped into the walk-in closet and paused. My wardrobe, or rather his version of it, lined both sides. Every piece was handpicked by him. Labels he respected. Colors he preferred. Cuts he approved. Not too short. Not too loud. Nothing desperate. As he once called my favorite red blouse, the one I never saw again after that comment. But tonight I wasn't looking for anything he approved of. I pushed the hangers aside and reached behind a row of pastel blazers. My fingers found the edge of a narrow panel. It clicked softly open. Inside, a shallow compartment I had built a year after our wedding. Back when the voice in my head was just a whisper, saying this might not be forever. From the darkness, I pulled out a weathered leather folder and a small fireproof box. Dust clung to the edges. My hands trembled as I opened them, not from fear, from the weight of memory. My MBA diploma still crisp in its navy frame. A stack of business cards. Thorn Advisory Partners, my old firm. The one I founded before I knew how well charm could disguise erosion. My CPA certification. A printout of a trust account that hadn't been touched in over a decade. Quietly growing behind layers of passwords John didn't know existed. My name was still on it all. Not as Mrs., not as anyone's wife. Just Alexis Thorne. A name I hadn't spoken out loud in years. I sat down on the carpeted floor, folder open across my lap, knees drawn to my chest. There were photos too, handshakes across long tables, panels where I spoke to full rooms, moments where my opinion mattered. And a handwritten note from my mother. One she'd slipped into my bag the day I landed my first client. Never shrink for someone who can't grow beside you. I had forgotten that line. I had forgotten a lot of things. Downstairs, the sound of laughter carried through the vents. The men were still on the patio. Still drinking. still retelling the stories where I was either silent or foolish. I traced the curve of my name on the diploma, the weight of it anchoring me to the truth. There had been a time when I was not an accessory, not a pet, not background noise. There had been a time when I was me. And that version of me? She wasn't gone. She'd just been waiting. By the time I came back downstairs, the laughter had died down. The guests were gone. Only silence remained, the kind that stretches between two people who no longer speak in full truths. John was in his study, door half open, scrolling through something on his tablet. He didn't look up. "Dinner with the partners Thursday," he said, still tapping. "Big night. Garrett Blackwell will be there. I need you polished." I nodded, already knowing what that meant. "Wear the navy one," he added. "Not the green. Too bold." I didn't answer. Just walked past the doorway, my bare feet soundless on the cold marble floor. The next morning I told him I had a hair appointment on Thursday. He handed me his credit card without looking away from the news. "Don't go overboard." He didn't know that I wouldn't be at the salon. I had other plans. By 10 that morning I was sitting across from someone I hadn't seen in years. Sandra Hayes. She owned a boutique consulting firm I once saved from collapse with a weekend of sleepless strategy work and a whiteboard full of red ink. Now she stared at me like I was a ghost. "Alexis Thorne," she whispered, shaking her head. "I thought you vanished." I wrapped my fingers around my coffee cup. It burned, but it grounded me. "I almost did," I said quietly. She leaned forward, arms crossed on the cafe table. "You here for real? Or just visiting the ashes?" "I'm coming back," I said. "If there's room." Sandra blinked slowly. "You're serious?" I nodded. Her eyes searched mine. Then, without a word, she pulled a notebook from her bag and scribbled something. 3 clients. High value. 2 in need of restructuring, 1 looking for strategy overhaul. They'll pay well. You can start Monday. I stared at the names. My mind snapped into motion, ideas already forming. Then she added, "Your husband came to me last year. Tried to pitch me." I looked up. He said, and I quote, "Female-led companies lack edge." Thought I'd like a firmer hand guiding my decisions. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The air between us filled with enough implication to drown us both. "He didn't even know who you were to me," she said. "Didn't know you built half of what I still use." I exhaled slowly. "Then let's make it interesting," I said. And just like that, something inside me started breathing again. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove to a part of town John never had reason to visit. A quiet block in Franklin Park with wide sidewalks and forgettable storefronts. The kind of place people pass by without really seeing. I unlocked the door to Suite 204. A modest second-floor office I'd leased under the name A. Thorne Consulting. 1 room, a window, and a desk. I assembled myself. Nothing fancy. Nothing showy. But it was mine. The space smelled faintly of new carpet and printer toner. I opened the blinds and let the afternoon sun warm the walls. Then I unpacked. A new laptop. Fresh business cards, white with raised ink. My name unapologetically in bold. A slim orchid in a ceramic pot, purple persistent. That afternoon, I opened 3 new accounts across 3 different banks. Transferred money from the trust fund John didn't know existed. Started building walls, legal, financial, digital, where he'd only ever seen open doors. By evening I was back in our kitchen, preparing his dinner. Lamb chops. Sautéed greens. Roasted sweet potatoes. Everything plated like a magazine cover. John walked in late, loosened his tie with a grunt. "Lamb again," he said, pulling out a chair. "Trying too hard." I smiled, setting the wine beside his plate. "Just wanted to make tonight special." He didn't ask why. He never did. Instead, he launched into a story about someone named Travis at the firm who'd screwed up a pitch because his wife got in his head. "And that's why I need you calm," John said between bites. "Polished. Not emotional." I nodded like I agreed. Like I hadn't spent the day laying the foundation of my own resurrection. He paused. "You're quiet." "I'm just tired," I replied. "Maybe take something," he muttered, sipping his wine. "You've seemed fragile lately." I bit down gently on my tongue. Fragile. That was the word he liked to use when I didn't agree with him. When I thought for myself. When I stopped laughing at his jokes. Later that night, once he was asleep, the deep, open-mouthed kind of sleep that comes with entitlement and 2 glasses of Bordeaux, I sat at the kitchen counter with my hidden phone. Not the one he monitored. The one he didn't know existed. It held everything. Screenshots of financial transfers. Backups of job offers he'd intercepted. Voice memos of his daily insults. A growing portfolio of proof. I had learned from him. Control is quiet. It doesn't yell. It smiles. And waits. The invitation came printed in cream cardstock with gold trim. The kind of formality that announces, "This matters." John had been rehearsing his speech for weeks. Partnership celebration. The card read. Black tie. Open bar. Held at the Sycamore Grand, where everything smelled like linen napkins and polished wood. "This is a big night for me," he said over coffee that morning. "Don't be weird." "Of course not," I smiled. I already had the dress. It wasn't the one hanging in the garment bag he'd picked out last month. Understated, elegant, don't outshine anyone. It was the one I bought myself, midnight black, architectural in the way it moved. It didn't ask permission. It made statements. The night of the gala, I arrived separately. Claimed my makeup ran late. The truth? I needed time. Time to breathe. Time to become the woman he thought he'd erased. The ballroom buzzed with curated laughter and corporate chatter. I saw him near the bar, holding court, tossing charm like coins to the crowd. He hadn't seen me yet. Perfect. I made my way across the room slowly, catching eyes I hadn't met in years. Not as John Whitman's wife, but as Alexis Thorne. His senior partner James did a double take. "Alexis?" he asked, as though saying the name woke something in him. "Good evening," I said, accepting a glass of champagne. "You look different." "Thank you. I've been busy." I didn't elaborate. Let him wonder. I joined a circle of the partners' wives. They were already deep into a story about someone's vacation home flooding. Margaret leaned in. "We've missed you at these things." "I've been rebuilding," I said simply. Her brow creased. "Everything okay with John?" I smiled. Tilted my head slightly. "He's been having some memory problems." "Really?" "Yes," I said gently. "Last week he told someone I never finished college. Odd, considering my Wharton diploma still framed above my desk." Margaret blinked. "You went to Wharton?" "Class of 13, I said. "But I suppose stress does strange things to people." The ripple had started. I felt it. John saw me just as the MC tapped the mic. He froze. I took my seat. He took the stage. "This year's Achievement Award," the MC announced, "goes to a man who's shown tireless dedication and vision, John Whitman." Applause. Cheers. Flashbulbs. John stood tall, smiling like he was invincible. And then he opened his mouth. "I couldn't have done this without my wife," he said. "Alexis, who chased me until I gave in. The most persistent woman I've ever met." Laughter. And I stood. In silence. "I have something to add," I said, voice even clear. The room stilled. John blinked, frozen at the mic. "I didn't chase him," I said. "He sent flowers to my office for 6 months." I said no repeatedly. "Until he wore me down." A pause. "Also," I continued, "while we're celebrating achievements, I'm pleased to announce the relaunch of my consulting firm, Thorne Strategy." A low murmur moved through the room. "We've already signed with 3 clients your firm pitched, and lost. We're hiring. We're growing." I looked at John. "And we remember everything." The applause didn't follow me out. Just silence, sharp, clean, undeniable. I walked through the double doors of the ballroom and into the night. The valet handed me my keys with a nod. Eyes wide but silent. He didn't ask if I wanted the heat on. I didn't need it. The car smelled like lavender and leather. The scent of a woman who chose her own life. John called 3 times before I reached the freeway. He left messages, all different shades of panic. The first was furious. The second was confused. The third almost pleading. By morning there were 12 more. I didn't listen to a single one. Instead, I made coffee in my new office, the sunlight stretching long across the glass table. A brass nameplate caught the light. Alexis Thorne. Founder. Strategist. No longer someone's wife. The walls were bare for now but clean. Wide open. Ready. The phone buzzed again. "John." New number. Blocked. Sandra sent flowers. James sent a proposal. Garrett Blackwell sent a question. Can we schedule a meeting? And just like that, the same people who had once looked through me now saw me with absolute clarity. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. He didn't contest. He couldn't. Not with everything I documented. Not with the recordings. Not with the financial transfers. Not with the witnesses. His firm had quietly encouraged him to step back. His partnership dissolved. His charm no longer currency. He tried to send one final message. I see now what I lost. But he never understood. He didn't lose me. He never had me. He had an idea of me, something to polish, shape, contain. What he lost was the illusion. What I gained was everything. Freedom didn't come in a dramatic moment. It came in morning light, in fresh coffee, in an office that smelled like promise, in emails from clients who valued my mind, in the sound of my own name spoken with respect, and in silence, the kind that follows after someone stops needing to explain herself. Because that was the real victory. Not revenge. Not justice. But becoming someone I never needed to shrink to be. And that, maybe, is